Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now, on with the show.
Hey, it's Josh McDermott from The Walking Dead, and you're listening to Biters with Kirk and Jeff. Kirk, dude, I love your artwork. I love your podcast even more.
I know who I am. I know what happened and what's going on. I know you didn't show me shit. You did. Everything that you were is dead. And it's not over. I forgave her because it's not over. It's not over. It's not over. I didn't turn away. I kept listening to the news so I could do what I could to help. I'm not giving up. You hear me? I'm not giving up.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Biters, the official, unofficial, I always say the official podcast of the Walking Dead TV show. We're not official. We want to think we're official, but we're not.
We're not even grown up. We're not even adult. How can we be official?
Exactly. I am one of your co-hosts, Jeff Marsick, and with me is my partner in crime, Kirk Manley.
Hello, folks. Welcome back.
So we didn't, last time everybody heard the dulcet tones of our voices, we were with Eric Jensen. We did an interview with him, which was a lot of fun. We were hoping to squeeze another one in before this first episode of the second half of season 5, but life being what it is, we didn't do it, so there we go. That's all I'm going to say about that. So here we are, the second half of season 5, episode 9. First of all, before we get to talking about this episode, boy, do we have a lot to talk about. We'll talk about we'll do the ratings or the numbers.
Why do we have a lot of this? Was it a big episode? Did anything important happen? It seemed like a totally average episode to me.
Yeah, it's just one of those filler episodes.
Yeah, a filler. That was full of filler.
So we the episode had 15.6 million viewers, 10.1 million in the coveted 18 to 49 group, and so 15.6, put this in perspective, this is the third highest rated episode behind the season 5 premiere, so this season's premiere in October, which did 17.2 or 17.3, and the season 4 premiere, which did 16.1. So a lot of people came back post Beth in Coda to see what was going on. And it seems like this week when you talk about The Walking Dead, they did because Talking Dead normally follows Walking Dead, but then they boosted it in an hour so they could show Better Call Saul, which had the best debut for a cable series of all time. And it's funny because Variety reported that it beat I think White Collar, or beat some show, I can't remember, at 4 million, and I was like, wait, Walking Dead did better than that. And actually, Walking Dead had the highest at like 5.3 million. So Better Call Saul beat The Walking Dead's record for cable debut.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Well, I'm
although
not surprised. I'm not surprised. I mean, Breaking Bad was one of the best TV shows in the history of television.
yes,
You know what I mean? And there was a lot of people anxious to see what they do with it. I have not seen it yet, but everything I've heard is that it was a really good episode, really good start to that series.
Well, if you haven't if you didn't see it on Sunday, it's being replayed again. So today, so you can catch it tonight. I think tonight's its regular spot.
Did you watch it?
No, I have. It's DVR'd, so I took it out.
Yeah. And then I believe Talking Dead is coming back to their normal post-show time frame, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, let's get into it. This episode was What Happened and What's Going On, written by Scott Gimple and directed by Greg Nicotero.
Okay. Anyway, we have been kind of started a process of looking at the titles before we start our talk. And I was thinking about this one, and at first I was kind of like racking my head, but I think it's just kind of very, my interpretation is just very literal. It's very straight up forward kind of what happened and what's going on. You know what I mean?
Pretty much. Yeah. I had the same.
I mean, do you
feeling.
see anything else about that title that I didn't?
No, because that was basically, that's basically the summation of what happened, of the episode is a little bit of, our team, so to speak, moving on after the events of Coda. And, now we're establishing, I mean, basically they're trying to establish a new normal, right? Eugene has been discovered to be a fraud. We lost a beloved member of the group, and they're kind of like aimless, and they're
right.
In a lot of ways, it kind of felt it's like a fresh start, because now they need a direction, and finding that community that Noah was from, finding that community it seemed like it was again. It seemed like it was a little bit of the same old, right? We just go from community to community, but there was nothing there. It was just, It was gone. And, so now the next target's going to be Washington, D.C. So, I just think I didn't grab any particular meaning from it as just being pretty obvious. Yeah,
I think if anything, it was maybe referring to the structure of the show, this or the episode. In other words, that because of the way they filmed it and the way that we'll get into, I'm sure, in a lot more detail, we see what happened first in the flashbacks, and then the what's going on is kind of how we got there, and so maybe they just decided to kind of go after the title, to go after the structure of the thing, as opposed to like Coda, which meant the end of a song.
Right.
So anyway, what were your goods? Good, bad, and ugly?
All right, so my good right off the bat was I loved the way it was filmed. I loved the staccato, seeing those little images of all these disparate kind of events or locations or whatever, and I thought it kind of lent a haunting, almost chaotic feel to everything, and I really liked that. I really wish that they were standalone. I wish they didn't tie into the story later on. My personal preference would have been that they were just like these bizarre images. And I wish they hadn't ended with the what was the girl's name when she looks over and she says it's all right now or everything's okay. Which is that lead into, we see it later on. But I really wish they had just kept that montage and that kind of spooky chaos, of that scene by itself and had it standalone. But that said, like the rest of the episode, man, there's something about this season, how these episodes are being shot. It just feels a lot different from prior seasons. I mean, they're almost like mini movies now.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Breaking Bad. They're almost like the same kind of production quality as Breaking Bad.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that they're trying to up that and trying to match that to some degree. I agree. I think the way the intro was it was like lyrical and almost poetic and kind of impressionistic. It was all with the flickering, jittering film frames and the color filter blends. That was just and the weird, the whole music through the whole episode was very different than traditionally. It was very weird, very eerie, very haunting. And I totally agree with you on that. I liked the fact that we were seeing flash forwards because it gets you thinking, how is that going to come to be? And it, like, for instance, starting off with the dirt and then seeing the funeral, you immediately assumed we're seeing Beth's funeral.
Exactly.
Of course, we find out at the end it's not, which was a great emotional twist and roller coaster. So I also really dug how that segment showed us all the tragedy that they've been through and did it in such a simple way. The shot of the train tracks for Terminus, a shot of Woodbury's Main Street, the prison tower with the sun setting, just those were the just here's where we've been and here's what the happened. Tragedy. Right. And then here's what's happened. They should have had a reference to the hospital, though. I thought they should have had some sort of, they didn't have anything about that, but I thought that was I agree with you on that. Totally. That was one of my goods as well.
Another one of my goods was, and it's no spoiler to say it, but, Tyrese dying, I thought was handled in a way that was, it was a shock for it to happen at the end, because my whole thing about him seeing these images and him seeing the governor and Bob and the other people is, I thought that was basically him coming to terms with his own guilt and that the realization that, like, who is it? Martin looking at him basically saying, if you had killed me, I never would have gone back and told everybody where everybody was, and you could have solved all of this. And I thought that was a great pivotal, like, guilty, stake in his coffin. So all these, and everybody's saying it's okay, this is a good place, or it's okay. I thought it was them saying, Ty, we're good, we're in a better place, and you're okay. So at the end, I didn't think he was going to die. There's no way that he was going to die. And at the end, when he's dead, I was like, holy crap, like yelling at my TV. And and you compare this to how Beth went out, and this is such a better way to handle that character, and it just had much more respect for the character, I thought, than what we had seen the last episode. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. I think that it's probably it may be my top death of a main character for the series. It's right up there with the only other two that I thought were really well done was Herschel and Laurie. Herschel's, he didn't get to really. It was kind of telegraphed, because once he was captured by the governor, you kind of knew that was what was going to happen. So and he didn't get much chance to have, any exposition or chance to kind of emote at all. This was an entire episode of Tyrese fighting his inner demons, dealing with his guilt, trying to decide whether he wanted to stay in this world and face this world the way that his father had, taught him with the listening to the radio and stuff. So, and I just, as a result, it just made that ending so much more impactful. The other thing is that this took the traditional kind of storytelling style and television, I suppose the movies too, but if the hero is going to suffer through this long, usually a key character would die immediately, and it would be, or not immediately in the episode necessarily, but would be abrupt and sudden. So it would be shocking, like, oh my God, I didn't expect that to happen to a main character. Instead, this gets dragged out over the whole episode, which kind of leads you to feel like he's going to make it. Right. You know what I mean? Because you can't go all this and then reward us at the end with him dying. I mean, come on, And then when they start to rescue him, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but he's like, oh, you see, it's gonna, he's gonna pull through on this. And then I started thinking to myself, well, maybe this is how the TV show is reconciling the comic book Rick hand amputation, that they're going to do. It's going to be Tyrese who's going to have it. Not, what I mean. Yep. And so you got, and then when that doesn't, he ends up dying. It made it even more emotionally, crazy and unpredictable. Yeah. Well, and that's another thing too about this show is that
we come off an episode where they killed a major character. Now we're going into, we've had a hiatus, and you would expect that this is going to be a, kind of a slow burn episode, right? Get us ramped up and ready for the second half of the season. But no, they go ahead and they kill off another major character.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
It's so that lends the unpredictability. I still think that there are like a core 4 or 5 that just aren't going to be touched. But everybody else, you're on the block, and it can happen.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm feeling more and more confident that that's one of the main core, especially Daryl. I know it economically makes no sense, but the way that not to just jump ahead, but I loved how the Glenn picks up the bat, and the whole reference to the bat thing, and of course you had Glenn with the bat scene in the opening with No Sanctuary, and all of these little ways that they're trying to kind of like
Negan.
get you, Negan, tie in Negan, and foreshadow Glenn's death by Negan with the baseball bat. But to me that means they're going to give us a twist on that. It's, it won't be Glenn.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
That's
say
my
that
guess.
Now. Hold on a second. You say that now, but remember, we said the same thing about Beth dying. We're like, oh, no, that's telegraph. That's the easy money. We can't. And so we went on the Judith. Who put us on the Judith path anyway? One of our listeners did.
Yeah, I think it was Laura.
Yeah. And boy, she just took us down the side alley. But
no, I think
it was a valid theory. But I agree with you. But it
just seems like it's too obvious. But maybe not. Maybe you're right. Maybe they're trying to make it obvious so you think it won't happen that way. But I wouldn't be surprised if that gets a twist. That I think that's definitely going to happen. But
and there's the other thing too, is that Glenn carrying around the baseball bat, for all of us who are versed in the mythology and we read the books, how many people read Walking Dead? 30,000? I mean, how many issues does it sell a month?
I think it's probably close to 100,000, I would think.
Versus
millions. Right.
16 million that watch. So there's a lot of people out there who don't get the baseball bat and barbed wire reference and geek out like we do. So
there was also, it was interesting too that and this could just be again them messing with us, or it could be me reading into it, but when Noah finds the mother, the wound in the head looks very similar to like someone took a bat right there. And then when they save Noah and then go off for Tyrese, and you have the whole rebar bar, and I'm sure we'll get to that. But anyway, Rick pulls the bar out and slams the zombie on the head. And as they're running off, the camera slowly stays on the head of that zombie, who has almost the exact same wound from a blunt object through the top of the head as the mother did.
Right.
And again with the bat, and is like, who was here? Who did this? Was it Negan coming through?
Well, right. Okay, so we're here. So let's talk about this. So they find. So first of all, we see what spray painted on the wall. Wolves not far. Right.
Right.
Which we don't know what that means. Could be anything. I mean,
I got a theory.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Keep going.
So then we get to the back of the estates, and they walk through that wall, and we basically just see the lower half of everybody's of body, or arms too. We see arms cut off, right?
Yeah. Well, just basically they're all torn apart.
And then we go to. But not torn apart, like cut apart. Like those are. I mean, it's not like somebody hacked and those were pretty decent cuts through there. And then on the escape, when they run into the back of the truck, and then it's all the torsos come out. It was like a mannequin convention. And then the W in their foreheads. Yep. So W clearly wolves. So what's your theory?
Well, I mean, I thought perhaps we're actually seeing the results or the leftovers of two different scenarios. One is some sort of attack on the place by a human group, and then possibly wolves, packs of rabid wolves. And that maybe they were, in this complex was in the middle of the woods. It wouldn't be, far reach to think that wild animals had, kind of seen them as bait or as food, and were attacking them. And then maybe they were throwing them zombie corpses or something. I don't know, because that the set, I kind of saw the zombie mess that they find on the other side of the fence as being different than the mess that they hit the truck and it falls out of them, mainly because of the branding of the zombie heads on the ones that fall out of the truck. But you're right. Those, I hadn't thought about the fact that those cuts seem pretty clean. They didn't look torn apart.
And even if you feed the body, and you know, it's a theory, and but even if you are going to feed the bodies to the wolves,
well, I don't know if they necessarily fed them, but they attacked, and that was the leftovers. Whether I don't know whether they were feeding them zombies to keep them away, or whether they were, throwing them over the side of the fence to kind of, I don't know, manage them somehow. That was just a theory.
I think it's another group of marauders.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely signs of that throughout the rest of the complex,
Yeah, because look at the homes that were there. I mean, what I thought was interesting, a bunch of homes that were burned out.
Torched, yeah. And like I said, there were lots of people, crushed heads. That's not a wolf,
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely. And then, of course, the branded W on the foreheads. I didn't realize it was a W. It looked like a weird kind of shape to me, but you're right. I think it was a W.
Yeah, I'll put up a screenshot on the site for everybody to see. But yeah, so yeah, those were my. I mean, it was basically a Tyrese. Oh, okay. No, I had something else good I liked too. Was when they're in the community, and I liked that there wasn't a whole lot of Monday morning quarterbacking what had happened in Coda. There wasn't like dissecting about. I mean, there was what Rick was talking about. Again, the dialogue was just great. It was just they said just enough that you got the gist of what they were talking about, but not so much that you're like, oh, why do we got to? And it was I loved it, and you could see that it's wearing on them. I really liked Michonne's the emotion that we're seeing out of Michonne now. And
right. She's at her wit's end.
Yeah, totally. And
so is Glenn.
Yep. But I also like that, again, Rick 5.0 is so different from the other seasons. When, Michonne puts this up, we should go to Washington. Yes, Eugene was wrong and he lied, but he didn't, he's got something, there's a point about Washington. We should be going to Washington. And old Rick, you'd be like, nope, we should just camp out here and stake our claim here. And didn't even hesitate to influence. She was like, yeah, we should go to Washington. And I was like, holy cow, where's Rick?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, he's decisive and yet clearly listens to his his people and is logical. And it wasn't logical to try and maintain that place. He was absolutely right. There was no sight lines. The walls were a mess. They were in the middle of the woods. They wouldn't be able to see who's coming, when they're coming. Mm-hmm. That was a bad idea. But going to Washington, that was a good idea. And so, it wasn't for him. It's clearly not about leading. It's or being the one in control or in the power decision-making position. It's about listening and making the right decisions.
Hey,
I was impressed with that.
Just as an aside, did you see what I put up on the Facebook page? The Yahoo's top 10 zombie kills.
No, I mean I saw it, but I didn't go to the link.
Well, it's wild when you watch the video because they harken back to season 1 of these characters, and we're so used to how they look now. That when you look back, they look so young and so different.
I know. There's a scene Rick looks like Grizzly Adams now.
I think the pilot, they had a shot from the pilot with Andrea in the bathroom of the RV, and even she just looks completely different and less hardened. There's almost, I don't want to say innocence, but naive. They look naive in those earlier seasons.
Right. Yeah.
All right, so what were your goods?
Oh my gosh, I gotta edit them. There's so many. I agree with you. I liked that the dialogue was sparse, but I also liked that they were hearkening back to the things that had happened. That they talked about the situation with Beth. They talked about, Glenn talked about what he's been through since the prison fell. All of this, Tyrese talking about what happened with him and all of his losses and stuff. And it's just really, they need, they kind of needed to demonstrate why these people are so frazzled, mm-hmm. and they really have been through a lot, and if you weren't getting it with the visual icons or the images of the shots, you were getting it with the dialogue. So that was really cool, I thought. There was a ton of foreshadowing throughout this whole episode. It was pretty powerful. I actually watched it for 2 times this time. And when they're walking through the woods in the beginning, heading to the complex after they've left the car, they pass a skeleton on the ground. And if you watch, they all walk past it and don't notice it, don't even look at it. In fact, Rick looks the other way, except for Tyrese. Tyrese looks at it and watches it as they walk by as a group. Then they come up on the road and there's the dead animals in the street and they all walk right by it and Tyrese looks at it. And then there's the big grandfather clock, and which is obviously, again, like with Coda, with Beth, starting off with the clock, time is running out, time is ticking, your time is up, whatever you want, whatever metaphorically you want to say, but they all kind of walk by it, and Tyrese is the one who looks at it.
Are you catching this stuff the first time you watch it, or do you have to go back?
No,
and
I'm
watch
saying
it
I watched this a second
time.
time.
I know, but do you catch this stuff the first time you go through? Clearly, you're making a mental note, like the clock. I mean, that clock laying there in the middle of the street. Clearly,
I caught. I didn't catch that he looked at the skeleton. I didn't catch that, but it's almost when you watch it, it's happening, and because you go back and rewatch it and you can see it, so you know it's happening. So I guess almost subconsciously you're getting kind of these messages, which are probably helping to build, the foreboding. Same thing when they leave, when they first park the cars, and he says, we should leave it here. It'll look like it's part of the wreck, and then there's the zombie inside.
Oh, right.
Inside the car. Well, it's a female zombie, but she's in complete silhouette, and she has long hair. And Rick stops and he kind of stares at her kind of weird, like, boom, this could, Laurie. I think for a second he's back with, and that's Laurie. And he, they all have these ghosts that they're carrying, and he turns around and the group leaves and they all leave. And as they're leaving, just as Tyrese is about to go behind the tree and out of the frame, he turns back and looks again at that zombie. It's just kind of, again, just this, he was noticing these things. They were all kind of, but that's kind of his weakness. You know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of why he gets bit in this, is that he gets a little distracted and a little bit too much emotion about what's happening instead of being a little bit colder and more realistic. And that's the battle, obviously, that's going on inside of his head. So I thought that was amazing. Let's see, what else I got here. On the WalkingDead.com's panel to screen review, which I usually check out after a show, where they point out, how the show was like the comic, or what panels were kind of literally picked up or whatever. They didn't really have a lot of similar panels, but they did point out that Wiltshire Estates was the estates that they find in the first couple issues of the book. Okay. The group finds, and they did already use that name with a community in season 2. It was the one that Laurie and not Herschel. Who was the other cop? How quickly I forget.
Oh, John Bernthal.
Yeah,
right.
Shane. So Shane and Laurie, I guess, go in and rummage through some community that they use that name for that community. But this was the community that kind of was falling in line with the comic story. And so what they did was they took the name and they flipped it. And if you notice, the name of the complex is Shire Wilt, right, instead of Wiltshire, which I thought was kind of cute, kind of cool. I laughed out loud when Rick says to Glenn, "You didn't think it would still be here?" And Glenn turns to him and goes, "Did you?" It's like, come on. At this point, there's nothing like this is going to survive with, average people behind the lame walls. Exactly. You know what I mean? It's just not between the zombies and then the horrible people that are out there. Again, I talked about the music. That was amazing. Just some of the scene setups and the camera angles. Like when they shoot Noah through when he's on the ground after having seen everything and he's coming apart at the seams. They have a shot through Tyrese's arm and you see Tyrese's hammer.
Yes. Yeah.
And then Noah and I just thought it was just really great photography. Then when they're going in the house and you see over Tyrese's shoulder, you see the broken mirror, and you see Noah's face.
It was the glass in the door,
and you
the
see his
glass,
reflection in it.
Yeah,
right.
that was really
That was
cool.
just really great. I mean, it was kind of like, here's about to enter this guy's shattered life. You know what I mean? It was just, it was beautiful. The bat we talked about.
I like the ending too, with when the car's driving along, and is he gonna die? Isn't he gonna die? I was on he's not gonna die. This is just him coming to terms with everything, and then when the car stops and they drag him out, but that shot is a long shot from way down the road. I thought that was, again, it was great. You didn't need to be there.
Spectacular.
And the way each of the actors carried themselves, I think they pull him out of the car and they put him down, and Rick just kind of walks off. Just his how he carried himself. Just that said more than dialogue movie.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Noah bolts out first, and he kind of just walks directly away from the car as if he doesn't even want to see what's going on, and then they just kind of all like business as usual. They take him out, but yeah, you can see that Rick is torn up about it. And then Michonne is just very matter of fact takes the blame. It was terrible. It was just, and again, when we see it from so far away, it just made it so much more heart-wrenching. Yeah. I think,
All I know is Noah needs to get put out and sent on his own, because that boy is bad juju. He really is. Two people getting killed. So
2 key people too. I loved the close shot on the radio after Tyrese gets bit, and the news broadcast starts, and that whole aspect of his hallucinations was just gave me chills. I just thought it was fantastic.
I thought that was when all that was going on, and Gary Dombrowski wrote in and said, "Hey, is it me, or was that Andrew Lincoln's voice, the British voice on the radio?" And no, Gary, that was actually Andrew Lincoln's voice on the radio. Good call.
That's so cool.
But see the time on the radio?
I did not notice the time on the radio.
Well, at first I thought it was 5:10. Which
did it have? I didn't know it had a time. It was a dial. It had a clock.
It was a dial and there was a clock to it. At first I thought it was 5:10, which the time always kind of layers into things.
Must have been 5:09. Was it 5:09?
No, it was clearly 5:10, which doesn't make sense because this is season 5, episode 9.
Right.
Yeah. But what number is associated with 10? It's 2, right? So 5-2, second half of season 5. 5 part 2. I don't know. That's what I took.
It's like the Roman.
No. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 around the dial, right? So at 5:10, it's pointing at the 2. Well, 5:09 would be the episode, but that's a little too on the nose. So if you go 5:2, then it's 5 second half of 2.
Very cool.
Or
very
second half
cool.
of 5.
The other thing is I thought that the he talked about how his dad made him listen to the radio in order to hear the news and to face the world that they live in. It was what did he say? I think he said it was the responsibility, the price you have to pay for living in the life or something like that. And, clearly there were things that he heard that were terrifying, you know what I mean? And so, the news reports you're hearing, I think a lot of people I saw online thought that these were like early parts of the zombie apocalypse starting, but I don't. To me, it was clearly they were talking about rebels, and it was some sort of civil war. I think it was the Rwanda Tutsi Hutu, conflict that was going on, because there was all these horrible atrocities where they were chopping people up and cannibalism and everything else. And that just probably was just mortifying as a kid to hear, that's could happen in the world, and then here he is now living in that. And it was really, really powerful.
Now, I kind of took it to the former part, which is that these were the opening salvos to the apocalypse, and this was what was going on. And because we know that once parts of society start breaking down, everything just goes to hell. So I kind of took it as most people took it, that's what those radio transmissions were about. And I thought that was cool, because that's the part that we don't. I'm interested in that part. I'm interested in the part, from Rick waking up from his coma backwards. Like, I want to know how this got started. I'm interested in all that. So, and we never get any of that, right? We're always in the now, which is great. So when you just add these little layers of the past that everybody has forgotten about, no one knows. What was that episode where everybody was talking, like Michonne talking about, she's been in this life for so long, she forgets, what it was like before. So I actually thought that was, if that's what it was, in either way, I mean, even if it's the Rwanda thing, that still harkens back to life before,
Right,
which is
right.
forgotten about, and I like that. I like that it gets brought up.
Yeah, I either way works for me, but I like that it probably ties into this is Tyrese's hallucination,
Right.
so it's drawing off of his personal memories, so and since we got the whole discussion about him as a child being forced to not forced but encouraged to listen to this kind of news, that's why I drew that conclusion. But did you notice when Martin shows up sitting on the floor, which was an outstanding performance again by that guy?
Mm-hmm.
Just he's an amazing actor.
I'm so mad that he got wiped out. He was fantastic.
He was unbelievable. But did you notice that behind him on the desk is a toy model kit of a zombie or skeleton that's chained to a wall? I just thought that was hilarious. So that was one kind of comical, but then also it was kind of a visual cue that here's a demon from within, Tyrese's psyche. You know what I mean?
It reminded me of those model kits from the 70s.
The horror ones.
Yeah.
I had all those.
Yeah.
the horror ones and the dinosaur ones. Let's see.
Every time I see those, it makes me think of Salem's Lot, the movie. Because the kid, he makes all those models, and his parents think he's weird because he does all those, and it's he has them like all over his room. The Creature from the Black Lagoon and Frankenstein and Dracula. It reminds me of my childhood. The clock. Did you think that when I saw it with the clock and the radio, I saw that as that's Tyrese's version of Rick's telephone.
Yes. I think, in fact, this entire treatment or this whole hallucination visual storytelling was an effective way of doing what they were trying to do there. I don't think it worked as well with Rick with the telephone.
Yeah.
This worked. You know what I mean? This was really, really well done. And I don't know, I don't know exactly what about it worked better, but maybe because it kind of was brought right from the beginning through the whole episode. Whereas with Rick, it would be these weird kind of moments hallucination and then a long stretch of him being fine. Just didn't jibe as well for me. If you listen right after the governor speaks to him about the bill has to be paid, you have to earn your keep. You said you'd do whatever you had to do. Then the radio has a bunch of static. But in between the static, you can make out the approaching zombie noises and the hissing of the zombie and the scuffling.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's just a really, really effective and so cool, film technique that they did to transition from, him being this hallucination and was really in reality a zombie approaching him. It was like, instead of, then you have him really convert right into it. As he sits down, it comes right down into his face. Then all of a sudden he changes into the zombie. But there was this signal going on as well that, that he was picking out. It was really, really beautiful. I don't know if beautiful is the right word. Really, really technically well executed. So a lot of technique, I thought, in this episode that just we haven't seen before. There's never been an episode like this, I don't think.
No,
I can't think of any.
It was great.
The story structure, the way they told it, the way it was filmed, it was really. I felt like they really broke out and were really stretching their wings, like you kind of said earlier in the beginning about trying to tie into not tie in, but tap into a kind of a Breaking Bad. Go against the norm, do something different type of thing.
The other tone of the episode too, you're not going to. They captured it. They captured it perfectly because you just came off a significant emotional event. You just saw one of your own brutally murdered, and that takes such a toll on you. They look exhausted. Glenn is he just looked tired. And Rick doesn't look. Rick is clearly still the leader, but even he just kind of had this I don't know anymore kind of look, and it was just they're being held together by chewing gum and baling wire, that's all they got left. And there's this hope of this community, and even Noah, that was like the breaking point on Noah. This is it. This is everything he was hanging on to at Slab Town, and there's nothing here. So, like I said before, you could easily have just ruined this episode by throwing in a ton of dialogue and let's rehash what happened and catch everybody up who didn't see the last episode, and they didn't do any of that. That was really great.
Did you notice that it was the villains who kept telling Tyrese, that he had to pay the bill, that he had to fight, that all this kind of stuff. Whereas it was the girls and Bob and Beth that were saying it's okay and it's better now. They were kind of like encouraging him to give up, and it was the bad guys that were kind of like driving him to face reality and stand up for himself and to basically to fight to live. You know, it's kind of an interesting twist. How freaking amazing was it to use his already bitten arm to distract the zombie, let him bite it so that he could get a weapon?
Yeah.
I don't even know if I would be like able to think that clear enough to be like, what the hell? I'm already bit. Might as well just let him get this. I mean, it was, so cool. And that's the teeth snapping zombie right in his face.
Yeah.
I mean, again, chomp, 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 chomp. It was like a dog right there. That was wild. Again, more fantastic camera angles. It felt like the zombie was coming right through the screen at us. All right. So we talked a little bit about those broken gates and the zombie parts out there and everything. One thing I didn't think of when we were talking about it was, what about the Whisperers? Who's to say that we wouldn't get the Whisperers before we get them in the comic book? The comic book, they're coming currently.
Right.
And for readers of the comic book, or people who are not reading the comic book or are behind in reading the comic book, this might be a spoiler, so you might want to zip ahead. But they would be taking bodies apart and using them, to as armor, or as I don't know.
It allows them. Yeah, they're basically skinning zombies,
right?
The body parts on them, and then moving among the zombies, kind of like you saw Carol do before,
right?
And other people do before.
So that's a possibility, I suppose. I was super glad that Michonne finally states the obvious about Washington. I was kind of getting worried that whether it was because of economical reasons for the show or whatever, that they were going to veer away from Washington and not go try to do that. But I think it's essential to be authentic to the show and to the comic. So that was cool, and it does seem kind of obvious. I mean, that he was lying, but the logic of what he said makes total sense. I mean, that was the center of our government. Chances are, if they're going to have any kind of reinforced protection or anything, it would make sense. And you're only 100 miles away,
Right.
So, so I thought that was a really good, a good story, dialogue, good choice. We talked about Rick as the leader. It was the first time I really liked Beth singing in an episode. I thought it was interesting, the lyrics at the very beginning when she first started singing, "Every man has a right to live. Love is all we have to give." I just thought that was kind of interesting because really that was kind of his deal. He was kind of a soft, emotional, loving kind of guy. But let's see what else here. The baby crying. There was 2 or 3 times when the baby crying was done, and it was this haunting. Like, I think when Noah is telling Rick about where they were and about the fact that Beth wanted him to go there and everything, and clearly that's when Rick's coming up with the idea that, he wants to bring him there or whatever. You hear the baby crying, but it's not at baby in the scene. It's like sound effect, you know what I mean? Just chills up my back. Did you notice that in the twin photos, there's always one twin that was kind of happy and one that was always solemn?
Yep.
And I just think that was kind of a metaphor for the battle in Tyrese between, living and dying. The dichotomy of, do you get hard and mean and callous about life in this new world, or do you, continue to hang on to your humanity and be sensitive and stuff? So it's just another little echo of that, I thought. We talked about Martin. God, that guy was amazing. The table. I thought it was really interesting that he crawls under this table. He keeps withdrawing under that 2 different times and then stays under there. And if you look at it, it's it forms this kind of like box around him, and it's made out of clearly out of like wood, and it was kind of like a coffin. You know, it's kind of like a wood box that he was putting himself in. And then when he finally stands up to the governor, he fights his way out of that box and leans up on it and stands up, and then has his confrontation with the governor that we heard at the top. And I just thought that was really brilliantly done and choreographed. We talked about the fact that they've made it play out so long, the death, that it was really so much more powerful. The use of the radio to tie back to his father and childhood fears, but now he can finally turn away and turn it off. In the end, when he says, he wants to turn it off, I just thought that was really touching. I mean, it wasn't subtle, Right. I mean, it was kind of like, okay, he's decided to leave, to check out, but it was heart wrenching. We talked about the long shot on the car. That was like outstanding. And then, of course, at the end, we're back to the beginning, with the dirt and the realization that dirt and that funeral was not Beth's. That brings me to the bads. What do you got for bad?
Okay, so my good was, basically a lot of the things going on in the episode. My bad is Tyrese's death. I get that he's the embodiment of hope, right? He's, as Chad Coleman has said in interviews, he's not a warrior. He's a fighter, but he's not a warrior. No, he's not a killer. He's a fighter. He's not a killer. And I get that. But when he gets bit, okay, so first I want to back up because my bad is, while you start the episode off with intelligence, right? We talked about how these guys have been in this world for however long, and they're getting tactics and they know how to work. So Rick stays at a distance from Carol to kind of, keep the distance between the two of them. They've got radios between them. Hey, we're going to stop 2 miles out from this community and we're going to walk in, and they've got a spread formation, and okay, smart. It's all smart. Then they go into the house, and Chad Coleman or Tyrese says, let me go first. He pulls out his little knife and he just, let me go first. And he does what he can to kind of shake out the biters or the zombies. And then he gets in the room, and it just seemed like it was a dumb death. And I guess I'm torn because on the one hand, it seemed like he had cleared the room, like he had cleared the house and there wasn't anything around. So being separated from Noah is okay. But again, it just seemed, and then, so he gets bit, but why doesn't Noah help drag him out of the house and go get help there? Why leave your man alone in the room?
Right.
Okay. So right. I didn't like that, but then I also didn't like the break of character. If he is this fighter, which goes back to, look, remember that one, what was that episode where he was swarmed by walkers and it was just him and a hammer, right? And they wrote him off. They're like, oh, he's done, forget it. And then 5 minutes later he comes out with a, dirty hammer and is like, all right, where are we going now, Well,
he talked about that at the very beginning. He said that he was basically trying to commit suicide. He decided to go into a whole mass of biters, take all of his anger out on them, he said to him, but then let them take him. And then he decided he didn't want to. He wanted to fight. He wanted to live. So and he was glad because then he saves Judith.
So then this is, well, okay. So there's all these people. There's all these people that are surrounding him that are saying, like you said, we got Martin and the governor saying, "Oh, you got to fight, you got to fight," and everybody else going, "No, just let it go. Everything's good. Everything's good." Right. And yet Judith never enters his mind. He never thinks of Judith. If this is him just basically giving up and going, I can't live in a world like this. I don't belong in a world like this. I can't fit. The Judith piece should have brought him back. He's
already, he talked about, again, that was all part of that first speech to Noah. He talks about how he's so grateful that he didn't die and he didn't let himself go and that he chose to stay because he was able to protect Judith. But he's now gotten Judith to her father. And so I think maybe he doesn't feel the responsibility anymore for that he did when he saved her and had her, and he had to, a mission to get her back. That's how I interpret that. Plus, again, we hear Judith cry throughout the episode at different points in time. And remember, when we're seeing those, the radio stuff, the hallucinations, the crying, those are from within Tyrese. Those are coming from Tyrese. Those are Tyrese's memories,
Right.
emotions, hallucinations, crazy. So she's on his mind. I mean, she's there. She's not directly, literally referred to during the hallucinations, but she is in the beginning.
This felt like, those when you find out that an actor is being is gonna there's an actor on a show, but then you find out that there's going to be a new show that's coming out, and I'm not saying this is it at all, but this is how it felt. Then there's going to be a new show that's going to be coming out, and this actor is going to be the central character of that new show, of that pilot.
Right.
So what do we got to do? Well, we got to kill him on this show to free him up so he can get to this other show. That's what this felt like. That's.
Well, supposedly he is signed on already to some other show.
He is.
I didn't know that, but one of our loyal followers there, Thomas, he tweeted me and reminded me that he had predicted this back at Walker Stalker Con, because he felt he saw that he was signed on to some other show already. But I don't know if that's it could be that he signed on to the show because they'd already told him that they'd already shot that he died. I mean, they just wrapped up the whole season a little while ago, so what we're watching was shot many moons ago, 6 months ago. So,
but it felt to me, it felt kind of senseless to me.
Yeah.
And that's why I, even though, and like I said, the entire time I didn't think it was going to happen. The entire time I would have been, I thought it was, let's not talk about the last 5 minutes. All the way up to that part, it's an awesome episode for someone who's just dealing with grief and guilt and all this stuff and all that awesome stuff that Martin said, basically like, you could have prevented this. I mean, that was great. And then at the end, he comes out on the other side like, okay, I'm good. I've gone through this. That would have been, it would have been a great episode,
right.
But so, and that's exactly what I was expecting to happen. So I'm actually going to tip my hand here, because my ugly is a good ugly, even though I thought it was bad to kill him. That last 5 minutes when you pulled the rug out from underneath me, I was like, wait, no, you can't kill him, and that was, I think I put it in my notes, like big capital letters and exclamation, like, holy crap. So, I'm playing both sides of the coin there, but
no, I understand, because I was torn too as well. I mean, Tyrese, I think, has been an underdeveloped, underutilized character.
Yeah.
And it was funny when they first when the episode opens up and they're in the car, and you get this great dialogue exchange between him and Noah, and Noah's basically trying to assure him that the decision to do the trade was a good idea, which was his idea, and basically trying to validate it and trying to make sure he doesn't feel guilty about it. What happened, and he's like, look, what happened. It was meant to happen. And then he tells the whole story about his father and the whole and I was like, wow, cool. We're really starting to they're gonna really go in and start developing Tyrese, and I think that's fantastic, and I'm really pumped about it, and of course here we go, but so no, I agree. That was both the plus and the minus of that episode. I had a few other bads. I agree with you that pulling away when they pull up to the housing complex or the facility or whatever, Rick's decision to pull 2 miles out from the destination strategically makes sense. But 2 miles?
Yeah.
2 miles? I mean, how about, half a mile? You know what I mean? Far enough so that no one can hear you coming, and you get to come in and check the scene out, but now they got to get 2 miles with this guy bleeding out. You know what I mean? That just, that was bad, I thought. Why all of a sudden does it matter for Glenn if you kill someone or not? I mean, I got that he's, they're frazzled, they're all burnt out and everything, but just because, Beth did something really stupid. You know what I mean? She went up, she stabbed that. She brought that scenario. Exactly. That didn't happen senselessly. It didn't happen, randomly. It happened because she did a stupid thing.
Right.
And yet all of a sudden now he feels like he doesn't care. Like he's completely the opposite of the person he was when they were escaping Terminus, and he made them stop. He said, "That's not the people we are. We have to let this guy out." And he even references it in the dialogue with Rick here. So I didn't buy that. I was like, I don't see why that one death would have made him completely change. Another bad for me was Noah not listening, running off half-cocked twice. You know what I mean? It's just I think Abby. Yeah, Abby Q pointed out, by this point, these people would have, a buddy system. You don't go anywhere without somebody else, So that was hard to buy. Tyrese did a crappy job clearing that house, man. I mean, he knew that zombie was on the other side of that room. He thought he was probably safe. Didn't think that the rooms might be connected, that maybe there's a little glimmer of realization when he's staring at that picture, and then the zombie you see in the background, and then all of a sudden his eyes kind of bulged like, oh my God, this is their twins. I'm looking at one of them. Where's the other one? Boom, too late. But I just thought that, I mean, I think he's smart enough to have cleared the place and then started daydreaming through the pictures.
Right.
I'm sorry. Gingerly holding your cut with your four fingers, that's not going to stop any bleeding, man.
Yeah.
That he should have been tourniquet, or he should have been at least wrapped it with a shirt or bed linens, knock that zombie off, grab the bed linens.
Absolutely. And on two fronts. One, Tyrese should have known this, especially given all the stuff that he's seen. And two, Noah should have known this, given the time that he spent in Slab Town. So,
Right.
dual bad on that one.
It's hard not. I mean, at this point, it's Tyrese has been with the show quite a while, so he's a main character that's been there a long time. But still, it had a little bit of that bad feeling of, we've got a black male character that joins the main cast, and then another black male character has to die.
Yeah.
T-Dog died when Oscar showed up. Oscar dies when Tyrese shows up.
Oh, but Ty never knew him. It should have been no. They should have had all those characters sitting there. Bob and the girls going. Oh,
one of his hallucinations.
Then T-Dog standing there going, "Yo, man, it's all right,
dude. It's just your turn, brother."
Dude, I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
You know what I mean? Then Gabriel showed up. Bob had to die. Now Noah showed up. Now Tyrese has to die. I don't get it. I mean, I don't know. It's certainly not a conscious thing, but at the same time, it's like, it's hard not to see.
You can only have so many people in the cast. So if we bring one in, we got to shove somebody off.
Right. All right. Ugly. You talked about your ugly.
Yeah, I actually forgot. I actually have one more bad.
Okay.
So I've got and so just keeping true to form. The other bad was Beth singing. Good Lord. So she just signed on to play in an upcoming episode of The Flash. She's going to be the Bug-Eyed Bandit. Yeah. I hope there's no singing involved in that.
Does the Bug-Eyed Bandit have an instrument?
God, I hope not.
Maybe they're not going to call it the Bug-Eyed Bandit. It'll be the Bug-Eyed Musician, Bug-Eyed Singer.
Bug-Eyed Banjo.
I can't see her playing a villain, but that'll be cool. I hope she stretches to it. I'm digging the Flash. I've mentioned it here before. I think it's been really good so far.
Yeah.
So
my ugly was the twist on the ending. I thought that was my good ugly. You?
Yeah, I mean, I talked a little bit about that. I think that I had a couple things that I thought were ugly, all ugly good. The complexity of Tyrese's emotions. He feels good that he did give up. So we kind of talked about this, so he could save Judith, but feels bad that he couldn't kill Martin and face the real world that he's living in now. And then, the fact that this conflict inside of him is playing out in the hallucinations is just like such a stroke of genius, I think, in terms of writing. We talked about the fact that I thought it was like, the best character death so far in the show, next to maybe Laurie's. The whole arc of Tyrese seeing good and bad people in his hallucinations reminded me of, did you ever see the movie The Jacob's Ladder?
Yeah.
It just really felt. Yeah, it's a great movie. If any of our listeners haven't seen it, you should check it out. But, the bottom line was, as you're dying and you're fighting to live, you see, and are haunted by all manner of demons. But, when you give up and accept moving on, the demons become angels. And when Tyrese finally decides to let go in the car, he doesn't see the governor anymore. He doesn't see Martin anymore. He just sees Beth, the girls, and Bob. And if you notice, all their cuts and abrasions, her stitches, it's all gone.
Oh, yeah.
They're all a little bit more angelic. You know what I mean? And I thought that was really...
Bob was still missing his leg.
Well, no, he's in the front seat, so you can't see him.
No, you see him on the bed.
Oh, yeah, but not in the car. I'm talking about in the car. Once what I'm saying is once Tyrese decided, very much like Jacob's Ladder, he's seeing kind of everybody first is kind of like demons when he's fighting to survive. Once he accepts this death and says, okay, now I'm going to turn away from the radio, turn it off, and I'm going to go. All of a sudden now the demons he's seeing are angels.
Yeah.
That's the point. I didn't think it was possible to do a scene like Herschel's leg chop off in the prison more dramatically. And man, I was wrong. The way it cuts into the reality of his arm being cut off from the girls holding him. You remember the girls come over, they take his arm and there's blood all over it. And they're like, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's who's really holding his arm is Rick. And then Michonne chops that. And then boom, we go to a cut. I mean, it was like, oh my, it just blew my doors off. Yeah. And I always thought the Herschels, when they go into that prison cafeteria and those guys are playing poker or whatever, and they do that, the whole thing was, I thought that was amazing. But this blew that away. Then to follow it up with one of the most grueling escape sequences I think the show's ever done, dragging him through the town, fighting off that huge horde through the gates.
Well, when they were doing that, when they were doing that slow-mo, and you see the one, so he's on the ground, Tyrese is on the ground, and Noah comes over, can you hold him? Yeah, and of course he can't hold him because Tyrese outweighs him by like 100 pounds, and he's like, drops him, and Noah's got his back to the gate.
That was a really nice touch, you gotta admit. I mean, can you hold him? Yeah. Boom, they go down to two of them like trees. I mean, that was good. That was very real.
But you just knew that someone's going to get through because Noah's got his back to them, and there's all these, all the zombies coming through. And sure enough, here comes the, one woman, coming towards them. And man, I just love the lick of flame coming out the end of Rick's revolver, and
the fact that this is the first shot.
Yeah, he takes her in the shoulder, and then
she's moving down, and it's all shot from point of view of down at the Worm's eye point of view, so it's coming right down on top. It was fantastic. And then, my last ugly was just that kind of, we've already talked about the whole structure of how the story was told this week, the flashing forward, the dreamlike hallucinations, the deception of what we thought we were seeing, the dirt in the beginning turns out to be the different funeral than we thought. Just a really, really creative episode in the writing and the editing and the cinematography. Just a fantastic opener for the second half of the season.
What was your kill of the week?
The one you just described, hands down. I mean, I thought it was really funny, the rebar thing when she goes to hit it with the katana and it bounces off, and she gives this funny look, and then Rick comes in, helps her and pulls the rebar out and hits it. That was pretty good too. But that shot where she's coming in slow-mo on top of him, and the mist through the shoulder, and then the recovery through the head, and it all comes flying down on you. That was just
that was cool. But I got to go with the model airplane through the eyeball.
Yeah, that was hilarious. That was hilarious. Somehow I got to work that into the art tribute.
Yeah.
So, see, this is the problem with this episode, though, for me, the challenge artistically. There was so much symbolism. And what I've been trying to do with my pieces is pick and choose little things from the episodes to give symbolic meaning. There's just so much of it in this. Yeah. And I'm going to have to be strategic about it. So.
And then your character?
Oh, Tyrese. I mean, he did a fantastic job. He did a fantastic job. I loved all of his dialogue. I loved when he stands up in that speech we played at the beginning, with the governor, when he decides to fight. Well,
he did an interview with...
fantastic.
He did an interview with Vulture, or with somebody, and they asked him about, they talk about the last scene, and, hey, how'd you find out that you were going to get, that this was going to happen and stuff? And he said, well, Scott Kimball called me, and he was in tears, and so hearing that he's in tears, that's never a good sign. But he was talking about the scene with the governor, and it just sounds like Chad Coleman just brought it and just impressed everybody who saw the thing. And he said he made mention in there that there was a lot of the things that he said during that speech that were just very powerful, and he was actually surprised at how much got left on the cutting room floor. So if they ever do a director's cut of the DVDs and just add extra footage, it'd be interesting to see what all he brought to, because that was a great speech to the governor. But and knowing how great an actor Chad Coleman is, I want to know what else was in there. What did they have to cut for time?
Yeah. That'd be good to know.
All right, so let's get to some.
We're coming up on 90 minutes, I think.
Are we really?
I don't know. Check your thing.
I'm showing a little over an hour.
Oh, okay, cool.
So we'll just read some quick Facebook posts that we got. Abby Q, I'm gonna have to just pick and choose from this. He wrote the Great American Novel here, and I hope you get it published.
You go,
dude.
Abby. You go, Abby.
Yeah, I hope you get it published. We'll buy one. No, I'm just kidding. So he says he gave it 4 headshots. Oh, yeah. How many headshots you giving it?
Yeah, we didn't do that. Oh boy, I'd have to give it a lot.
Well, you top out at, what did we say we top out at?
5.
5?
No, I think 5 was the top, and we've never given. I don't think I've given a 5. I gave pretty high to No Sanctuary. I'd say this is right up there, 4.75 maybe.
Okay.
I don't know if there's been a.
I'm gonna go with a 4.
Okay.
So, and Abby gives it a 4 as well, and he said this is the perfect title to kick off the back half. The episode was great, in my opinion, but such a wasted storyline with Ty. As one of you mentioned during the Doc interview, would be our interview with Eric Jensen, Chad is a tremendous actor, and I also feel they didn't use him to his full potential. He was sort of just on the back burner since he appeared, which is a bummer. The good, as Abby says, the imagery, the sound, the scenes, the pacing was put together nicely, I'd say. Perhaps maybe because we were left with a sour taste after Coda, but I really enjoyed this episode as a whole. I went in thinking it was going to be a whole funeral episode for Beth, but I was wrong. I totally agree. The bad, he brings up, Abby says the same thing that we've said. These guys are close to experts when it comes to dealing with walkers, scavenging, lookouts, etc. And the buddy system should always be in place. When he tells you not to go somewhere, when you're told not to go somewhere, just don't. And he says that, not saying you need to use every bullet, but you have bladed weapons. Use them. If I get bit and I was in that situation, I'd run to the kitchen, find a knife, and go at it. I'm not going to sit around contemplating whether I want to live. Even in death, Beth won't stop singing. He said, just in general, Ty dying really bummed me out. He didn't need to die. There was no real reason. I think the writers just wanted to get a reaction.
Well, I'm going to interrupt for a minute because I think because if I don't, I'm going to forget. This whole age thing is really a freaking drag. But you mentioned Beth and Tyrese, and I suppose even further back to Herschel. They were the moral compasses. They were the humanistic people left in the group. Mm-hmm. And I think what they're trying to do is tear the group down to this more raw, survivalist group because they want to show, how hard that is going to be, and how miserable that's going to make them. And I think, that's going to be the driving force of this back half. And and they've lost all of that. I mean, he was really the last kind of warm fuzzy.
So without a moral compass, to kind of keep them anchored, keep them grounded, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Right.
Let's see. Abby brings up a good point here. He says, I like when you guys point out that less is more. You don't have to say a whole dialogue to convey the idea or feeling about a situation. For instance, the burial scene. Sasha's reaction to her brother's death was perfect. We didn't mention that, but that is...
Yeah, he's right on. Totally agree.
She didn't fall to her knees, and that would totally been justifiable. She didn't fall to her knees or anything that we typically see with someone grieving. But she was just haunted and just hollow, and she's...
Same thing with Rick when he goes to finish the shoveling.
Yeah. This is Abby saying, I literally broke when I saw her because I felt what she was feeling, the pain and anguish of losing people you care about back to back. It has to suck. I didn't see Tara in the funeral scene. Did anybody else notice her?
Yeah, I did. It wasn't in the, I don't think it was in the back half, but in the first half of the show, in the beginning, I think you see her walking over, or it may even be in the back. But yeah, I saw her. What I didn't see Cudlets. I didn't see Abraham or Rosita. There was a scene that had Eugene in it. Yeah. And we saw one shot of Maggie. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how Carol reacts to this too.
And we didn't see Carol. Yeah. We didn't see Carol, and we didn't see Daryl.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there was one shot.
Yeah.
There's one shot when there's the flashback when they're running up to cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. The shootout scene was incredible, I must say. I hope we get more like that in the future. Also, the close-up of the walker attacking Ty on the wall. Again, wonderful little scenes that stood out. I thought they did a great job shooting the crew running and trying to get tied to safety, his foot getting caught in the wire. I was on the edge of my seat watching that whole sequence. Yeah, I thought nothing good could come from that. He says what we did, Noah's caused 2 deaths. Congrats, kid. I'd honestly put him down ASAP. I'm done with Noah, and I'm not going to regret it. Abby's Walker kill was a slow-mo bullet to the shoulder. His character was Michonne. She's trying to see a future, a peaceful future, and you had to give her props for that. Let it be known Rick chose to go to Washington because Michonne told him to.
Yeah.
And he said, I gave it a 4 because it was shot like a Breaking Bad episode, which we mentioned. Dumb mistakes will get you killed. Overlooking things and not being cautious will get you killed. Some limpy, weak kid will get you killed. In capital F, will get you killed. So who will babysit Judith now? Both the babysitters are gone. And, as he says, hope is dead. There is no hope. If a character has some kind of hope, he gets killed off. If a character has some kind of an enjoyment moment, he gets killed off.
Yeah, it looks to me like Tara's the last. She's the next moral compass.
Yeah, and I think she's been a red shirt since the day she.
I would be surprised if she makes it to Washington.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say a red shirt, right? Those were the ones on Star Trek that always ate it in an
That's
episode.
Right. When you guys went over when Abby talked about the chase and through the wire and stuff, it reminded me too of another foreshadowing. When they first come upon the wire, Michonne, I think it's Michonne, asks Noah if his people did this, and he said they wanted to, they must have, which I thought was kind of interesting. But then he's the only one when they go through it that gets cut.
Do you think the wire? Do you think the barbed wire? Do you think that was an homage or a nod back to Chad Coleman in The Wire?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm totally pulling that out of my butt.
I think you're right. No, I think that could be. That could definitely be. And then also the Rick shoveling, I think at the end was a tie back to Four Walls and a Roof when they him and Tyrese are shoveling graves for the cannibals. Yeah.
Right. Gary Dombrowski wrote in. He said, "Totally unexpected character death." Well, actually, the first one he wrote. The first one was shit. I was laughing at.
Amen.
But then he wrote. He said, "Totally unexpected character death. The Walking Dead is great at wasting top level acting talent. Other than springing an unpleasant surprise on us, what did that do to move the story along? I did like the cold open with the montage image and scenes, just to have them fall into their proper place in the episode. Noah's community looks like it had been attacked by a group packing some serious hardware. I did note the words "wolves not far" spray painted on a low brick or stone wall. Also, what was up with the people or walkers with their torsos and arms removed from their lower bodies and legs? I also took note of the baseball bat Glenn adopted and was carrying, maybe a foreshadowing of things to come. Negan! Hopefully, I had the Negan part, he didn't. Hopefully it does not fall into the wrong hands. Wink, wink. I was a little confused as to their choice of characters that have been lost in the show that appeared and were talking to Tyrese. They should have inserted Karen in there somewhere. Maybe her burnt corpse was too busy working on another show. 3.5 headshots for this one. Yeah,
I saw someone else talk about that, and my inclination was they probably wanted to, but they couldn't get her. There's I now can remember there is another show that did a very similar style to this. Not it's probably even more dramatic. Did you ever watch Buffy?
Yeah.
The final episode of the fourth season, I think it was the fourth season, where it's all dreams. They sit down in front of the TV to watch TV, and I think it's like some curse it's the first Slayer enters all their dreams, and they basically have this huge episode of just them going from one person's dreams to the next and stuff like that, and it was very very similar in terms of the way it was shot and with all of the symbolism and stuff like that they did. Yeah,
and then
I don't know why I brought that up.
There was a point.
Oh no! I know why I brought that up. I brought that up because it's often been heralded as one of the best episodes of the show, and in actuality, the people who were in it, and there were a lot of other people from the past episodes who came back, people who had died, people who were moved on or whatever. But there were a lot of key people that weren't there. And in past, and since then, I've read articles with interviews with Joss Whedon and stuff, and they wanted to get different people. Like they wanted to get Angel to be the person who was going to be in all the dreams, and they couldn't work it out schedule wise. So I think that happens with shows when they can't get, especially when they're trying to bring all those actors back.
Yeah.
They can't get them all because of conflict, so they have to make do. And I'm sure they wanted to put Karen in there. I'd be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then Diane said that she was kind of, as she said, wept and wept. She said she totally needed some time to process. She's up in Alaska, and she said sometimes living in the middle of nowhere sucks. So we need to get her a support group up in Alaska.
That's right.
Diane, we're going to try to help you out there. So
that's right. We'll put up some happy faces and stuff, some pretty pictures, and on the Facebook page.
All right. Well, I think we have. This is by far the longest episode we've ever done.
Yeah, really. Well, there was a lot to chew on.
Yeah.
We've been for a while.
Um,
So what's the name of next week's episode? Do we know? Them. Oh. Hey, so what do you really think is going on we talked about it a little bit, but did you, and maybe I missed it, but what's your theory on the torsos, on the zombie torsos?
Dude, I have no idea. That all I know is that's not random. That
Right.
is an act of some purpose there. But why would you throw the legs out back and then stack a truck bed full of them? First of all, why are you branding them, right? And then I don't get it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And we've not seen anything like this in the comics, so it's not a.
I wonder if it's going to be a group that they encounter between here and Washington that is not necessarily from the comic. Something they've kind of come up with. Yeah.
It would have to be.
That's weird.
So, all
And
right.
we got no Morgan.
Not yet.
Boo.
I know.
It's a bummer.
So, all right.
All right, brother. Well, listen, everybody, thanks for listening in, and be back next week. Don't forget that you can email us at biterspodcast@gmail.com. You can post up on the is that going to facebook.com/biters? Is that it? Or is it Biters Podcast? I don't remember.
It's Biters Podcast.
Biters Podcast. And be sure to send us in your thoughts on the episodes, and we'll read them on here, and we'll be back next week. What else?
Just check out other shows on SouthgateMediaGroup.com with the adding shows all the time. If you like The Flash, come over and listen to me and Scott Malkus talk about the Flash TV show on Fast Talkers. And
don't forget to check out Z-Girl and the Four Tigers at zgirl.org. That's the independent comic that Jeff and I do together. And then also, hopefully by the end of the week, I will have a new tribute piece to post up. It's going to be a tough one, doing two memorial pieces back to back. Pretty emotional.
Well, you heard the tease, not the teaser, the on the beginning of the show, the accolade that you got. Man, I tell you, I'm gonna have to deflate your head between Eric Jensen on the interview, and now we get guests raving about you and the podcast. Oh man, no pressure to put out.
I'm blushing.
No, it's good stuff.
It's nice. It's really nice to get the attention and the kind words and support for the work.
They would only just make you the official guy for the show.
Yeah. I just I sent a set of prints to off to AMC people, to Mr. Gimple and stuff again. So hopefully he'll get those and be happy with those.
Just the last thing is, last week was, I believe it was last week. Yes, beginning of last week was the Times Talks in New York City, where they were going to have Scott Gimple and
I
a
saw
couple
your
of
post
people.
on that.
Well, that was also out here in the Northeast, so that was at New York, and I actually had a friend and I had tickets to go to that, and I was all prepared to go there and try to meet Mr. Gimple and say,
cool.
Hey, I'm the other half of the show, and just wanted to say hi. And but we had Snowmageddon that day, that night when everything was messed up and the weather was awful. And a couple people canceled too. So
every couple of days is Snowmageddon, snowpocalypse. It's freaking crazy. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
And we'll see.
Catch you next week.
You guys next week. Take care.